and here to talk about 360 video distribution challenges from NSC Creative, the t-shirt making it clear, Paul Mowbray. So welcome, Paul.
Okay, so we're based at the National Space Centre in Leicester. We've been creating immersive experiences for over 16 years in attractions, museums, theme parks, full domes, and most recently VR. I'm going to use a recent project, it started 2 years ago, to kind of use as a case study for some of the challenges of 360 video distribution at the moment. So the We Are series of films, back in 2009, we did a planetarium dome film called We Are Astronomers, which was a 2D dome film. And then in 2012, we released We Are Aliens, which was a stereoscopic 3D dome film. And then We Are Stars was conceived as a transmedia project. So taking into account both the dome and the emerging 360 video opportunities that VR present. So this is kind of the film as seen in a dome environment. The 3D planetarium at Bristol across the way, they show the We Are Aliens show in 3D. And so the original idea was that we would, this is back in beginning of 2015, we would create this kind of golden master, this 16K by 8K equirectangular image per eye at 60 frames a second. We kind of quickly, because the reason for going so high at that point was because the dome, the emerging kind of dome high-end standard was starting to come out at 8K by 8K in a 180 kind of fisheye projection. So we thought that would kind of be the perfect way to minimize the rendering, but it just didn't work out technically at that point in time. So we decided to break it into 3 stages of production. So we had the dome 4K 2D kind of standard frame rate, 30 frames a second version released in July 2015. So that allowed us to complete the production, put it to market and start to make revenue from the planetarium market internationally, which we know very well, and we know we can make money from that system. And then we followed on with the 360 video VR version and went to 4K by 2K per eye, high frame rate, 60 frames a second, and then went back to the dome ultra 8K by 8K per eye, 3D 6 frames per second. So it wasn't the most efficient process, but it made more sense for us to do that over the timeline of the project. So these are just some kind of like bullet numbers of the challenges. So kind of comparing one of our traditional films, which is 4K by 4K at a standard frame rate in 2D, we really start to enter into some kind of quite astronomical numbers in terms of the amount of storage required, just the sheer amount of kind of files with all these different formats. So I should say it's a 25-minute experience as well. So in 360 video, that's almost considered a long-form project at the moment. So dome distribution, we know it very well. It's relatively straightforward because even though there's all kinds of different projector configurations in the domes, they all have their own kind of proprietary encodings and playback solutions. So we just send out a master, and they're able to slice and dice for their system, and we don't need to worry about it too much. And so moving on to the 360 video release of the film, obviously we wanted to target all the headsets on and coming to the market. And we thought, by the time we would have the 360 video of the version kind of ready to release, that all the different growing 360 video platforms would be ready to enable paywall and monetization. But we're kind of still waiting for that kind of a year on. So we finished the VR version last summer, and there's still very, very few options to do this. So we kind of reluctantly had to create our own player application just so we could get it into the storefronts to be able to actually charge for this experience. So originally we were going to start with Gear VR. It's the kind of highest end mobile VR device and has the largest user base, but we couldn't get the quality that we wanted. So we thought, okay, we'll go with a premium release. We'll go to the tethered headsets. Still some challenges, which I'll go into in a moment. And then return back to Gear VR, which is kind of where we are now. So the key issues which other people have kind of mentioned is this kind of Ultra HD resolution limit. So it's not, for monoscopic content, it's not too bad, but because we're stereoscopic, we're essentially losing 50% of the pixels because we're having to squish the master into this kind of Ultra HD 16:9 aspect ratio file to conform to the decoding capabilities of the headsets. And also, over the life cycle of this project, we started with the Note 4, then the S6, the S7. There's kind of different codec support between H.264, H.265. So, and also with mobile, obviously, we've got a 25-minute experience. So if we want people to download this to their device, it's going to take up all of their storage. Streaming, as it stands at the moment, it's just not good enough in terms of a bit rate. And it's such a kind of mixed experience. So some real kind of challenges there that we're still trying to overcome. With the Rift, the key challenges were we were working within Unity. It's not designed for video, so we were reliant on a lot of third-party plugins. So we were at their mercy in terms of their development roadmaps. Again, not to get too technical, but in terms of GPU acceleration to decode very high-resolution video files, you can utilize the built-in Windows Media Foundation support, but there are some limitations with that as well, which didn't get us to the quality that we wanted. So you can fall back to direct show, but then there's other kind of challenges with that. In terms of creating a user experience, there's lots of different input devices. So we wanted to make sure that we were covering and ticking all of those boxes as well. So kind of moving on to the business kind of monetization potential. We decided on this kind of £6.99 price point to try and go with that kind of iTunes documentary kind of price point that kind of exists. And what was really important was, because we launched on Steam first, it was really important that we tried to set user expectation because, Steam is predominantly a gaming platform. And so we had to make sure that, literally in our description, we were telling people, look, this is a 25-minute linear passive experience. You're not going to be shooting anything in this. So, don't get mad at us and request a refund. And, we did get some people who didn't read the description, gave us bad reviews. But overwhelmingly, we've had really positive feedback. And so this was done at the end of February, 2 months after release. So we're certainly not exactly going gangbusters in terms of sales. But I thought this is kind of interesting to try and kind of show the landscape for 360 video and kind of units. So you have to take the numbers with a pinch of salt because they're coming from Steam Spy. But basically, if you look at something like Google Earth VR, they've got nearly 250,000 units when I did grab this data. And then interestingly, kind of Jean and Within, which are two of the major 360 video platforms, they've only got kind of just under 50,000 units, which I think kind of makes sense because on Steam, people are going there for the gaming rather than the 360 video. But just to try and give us some context as to what our expectations should be for the potential revenue return on this project. So the Martian experience, when that launched, it got absolutely slated because the price was really high, and since they brought the price down. But when you look at the unit sales, it's kind of big Hollywood blockbuster movie, and we almost had as many as them in the same amount of time. Moving on, so. Yeah, there are lots of 360 video platforms out there, but there seems to be an absolute refusal to enable a paywall at the moment. And the argument is it's all about growing eyeballs and expanding the user base. But for those of us who are producing content and feel we have a premium product that we think, well, we know people are prepared to pay for it because they are paying for it and they're giving us very good reviews. It would be helpful for the VR stakeholders who are running these to give us a paywall, basically. So, these will inevitably kind of come, and I can see the conundrum that they don't want to enable monetization, and then there's a lack of premium content. So I kind of get it, but it is frustrating when we feel we're at a point where we have a product which people are prepared to pay for. So one to watch is the Steam streaming, adaptive streaming 360 video platform, which should be coming soon. They're partnering with Pixvana, who have an adaptive streaming tech. So this is kind of hopefully the answer to a lot of people's problems, not just for mobile, but also for tethered devices as well. Amazon and Netflix haven't shown their hand yet. We know Amazon Studios are kind of working on VR stuff, but they're not in a big rush. So I had a star on my comment earlier. So Vimeo recently, a few weeks ago, kind of 2 years after YouTube 360, they decided to launch Vimeo 360. So it's definitely a step in the right direction. As with the standard Vimeo platform, they have the paywall option, so you can rent, purchase, tip, I think. But it's kind of, at the minute, there's limited HMD support. They support Google Cardboard with a plan for future headsets, but it's not clear when. If you're doing a high frame rate experience, they're essentially using the same bit rate for 30 frames a second as they are for 60 frames a second, so you're essentially halving your quality if you want to push it out at a high frame rate. In-app, there's no timeline. You can't kind of pick and scrub in your timeline. So for a 25-minute experience, if people, especially on Cardboard, if people want to return to that, they have to basically start at the beginning each time. But it's a start. So it's taken a few years for one of these platforms to enable a paywall, but it's a step in the right direction. I was saying, we've got some great feedback on Steam. We're now on Oculus Store and Viveport. And like I say, we're trying to figure out how we can maintain that quality experience across the mobile devices as well. As a lot of people, I think, who have been working in VR for the last few years, we're really excited about the possibilities of room scale. So kind of to complement the 360 video experiences, we're working on the Observatarium. So this is an interactive virtual museum designed for actual museums and science centers to utilize that desire for people to kind of try out and the buzz about VR at the moment, but there's not that much relevant educational content. So we're going to put this out as an open beta for people to kind of give us feedback and help inform our roadmap, and also it has the potential to kind of extend the museum experience into the home as well. And then another project is Vestige, which is a multi-narrative, volumetric live capture, room scale kind of art house narrative experience. So that's in development at the moment, and we're looking for partners. So that's a little bit about kind of some of the issues and challenges we've seen. If anyone's got any killer solutions or suggestions, I'm all ears. And hope to see you over a beer tonight. Thank you.